I grew up about half a mile away from Drake University, but it also has a world-class collection of mid-century modern architecture. Within a half a mile of my house were buildings by Harry Weiss and Leal Saarinen and Eero Saarinen, Ed Barnes, Mies van der Rohe, all in this kind of little pocket. Well, I looked at a lot of really good architecture, like just every day, because I would walk by or through this campus to go, this commercial district that was on the other side of it, so I'd ride my bike across it all the time. The other thing is my mother should have been an architect. She was of the era where she was convinced that women couldn't be architects. She had chosen to go into mathematics instead. So I would often go by these buildings with my mother, and my mother would talk about them. And so it was no great surprise that I became an architect. I think that it was that exposure from a very early age. I think it's frustrating when you're entering the profession because it's one of these things that it takes a really long time to learn, to get good at it. Because I think you largely get good at things by making mistakes, and construction is a pretty laggard process, and so it takes a long time to make mistakes. You build up these mistakes. That part, is very different from what I was probably expecting going into the profession. I feel like I practice, or I have practiced, during really interesting times. When I got out of school, we drew everything by hand. In the course of a decade, we went from drawing everything by hand to drawing nothing by hand. By the time I started my own practice, we don't even really have the means to do drawings by hand. It's so digital at this point. Over the course of that 12 years since then, you've seen the change of technology from the computer used to be a tool to do exactly the same kind of drawings we did before, just with a computer instead. Now, obviously, building information modeling has transformed the profession again. So over the course of 25 years, you've seen it go from hand drawing to the ability to virtually model. So I think that's been a surprise, just the amount of change and the velocity of change.